6 months, maybe less. The doctor had said 3 weeks ago, looking at me with that practiced mix of clinical detachment and rehearsed sympathy. The cancer has metastasized to your liver and lungs. I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds. I hadn't told anyone yet. There was hardly anyone to tell. My sister in Florida, a couple of drinking buddies, my boss at the hardware store. None of them knew I was parked outside this modest 2-story house in suburban Portland, working up the nerve to knock on the door of the son I hadn't seen since he was 12 years old. Get it together, Frank, I muttered to myself, watching a man about my height, but 20 years younger playing basketball with a boy in the driveway. My grandson. I had a grandson. The thought hit me like a physical blow. I reached for the door handle just as my phone rang. Dr. Kapoor's office. Perfect timing. I let it go to voicemail and stepped out of the rental car. 20 years earlier, I had walked out on Matthew and his mother after another explosive fight about my drinking. Don't come back until you're sober, Claire had screamed. I got sober all right, 5 years later, but by then, the divorce was long finalized and Claire had remarried. She'd moved Matthew across the country, and I had convinced myself they were better off without me. The biggest lie I ever told was that I stayed away for their sake. The truth was simpler and uglier. I was a coward. Every year that passed made reaching out harder, not easier. How do you explain a decade of absence? 2 decades? I sent birthday cards for the first few years, then Christmas cards, then nothing. The shame grew like a cancer long before the real one took root in my pancreas. Can I help you? I froze halfway up the driveway. Matthew had noticed me and was now standing protectively between me and the boy. Matt, I said, my voice cracking. It's Dad. I watched 20 years of emotions flicker across his face in 5 seconds. Confusion, recognition, shock, and finally, something hardening into cold anger. James, go inside, he said to the boy without taking his eyes off me. But Dad now. The boy, my grandson, looked between us curiously before reluctantly trudging inside. What are you doing here? Matthew asked, bouncing the basketball once, twice, as if deciding whether to use it as a weapon. I needed to see you, I said, hating how feeble it sounded after 2 decades of silence. Needed to? After 20 years. He laughed, a harsh sound nothing like the carefree giggle I remembered. What would you possibly need from me now? I opened my mouth, but no explanation seemed adequate. How do you tell your estranged son you're dying? That you've wasted your whole life and are desperate not to waste what little remains. I made a mistake, I finally said. Many mistakes. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday, Matthew replied, his voice ice cold. You disappeared from my life. Do you have any idea what that does to a kid? To think he wasn't even worth sticking around for? Each word hit like a physical blow, but I deserved every one. I know, I said. I don't expect forgiveness. Good. Because you're not getting it. He tossed the basketball aside. I need to get back to my son. My wife will be home soon. We have dinner plans. Matthew, please. You don't get to call me that anymore. He was walking backward toward his front door. It's Matt now. Has been for years. Something you'd know if you'd been around. Could we just talk? Maybe over coffee sometime. The desperation in my voice was pathetic even to my own ears. I don't think so. He reached his front door. Goodbye, Frank. Not Dad. Frank. I flinched as he shut the door firmly in my face. I stood there for a long moment, unsure what I had expected. Open arms? Tears of joy. I prepared myself for anger, even hate, but the cold dismissal felt worse somehow. Back in my car, I pulled the doctor's letter from the envelope. Test results confirming what we already knew. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, with secondary sites in the liver and lungs. I had declined aggressive chemotherapy that might give me an extra few miserable months. Quality over quantity, Dr. Kapoor had agreed. 6 months of relatively normal life, then a steep decline. 6 months to undo 20 years of absence. It didn't seem possible, but I had to try. I checked into a motel on the outskirts of Portland and spent the night staring at the ceiling, trying to formulate a plan. By morning, I had decided persistence was my only option. I couldn't force Matthew to forgive me, but I could make damn sure he knew I was serious about reconnecting. The next day, I parked down the street from his house. watching as he left for work in a dark blue sedan. I waited another hour until I saw a woman, his wife, I presumed, walk their son to a waiting school bus. Once the street was clear, I approached the house and left an envelope in the mailbox. Inside was a letter I'd written and rewritten a dozen times, try to explain myself without making excuses. Matthew, I know I have no right to ask for your time or attention after all these years. What I did was unforgivable. I left when you needed me most, and there's nothing I can say that will undo that damage. I'm not writing to ask for your forgiveness. I'm writing because I need you to know the truth. I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. I told myself I was respecting your mother's wishes by staying away, but the truth is, I was ashamed. Every year that passed made it harder to reach out. I got sober 15 years ago. I should have contacted you then, but I convinced myself you were better off without me. I was wrong, and I've regretted that decision every day since. I'm staying at the Pinewood Motel on Highway 26, room 114. I'll be here for as long as it takes. Even if all you want to do is yell at me for an hour, I'll consider it time well spent. Your father, whether I deserve the title or not. Frank, I didn't mention the cancer. It felt manipulative, like I was playing the dying man card to force his hand. If Matthew was going to give me another chance, I wanted it to be genuine, not born from pity or obligation. 3 days passed with no word. I drove by his house each day, but kept my distance. On the 4th day, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Hello, it's Matt. His voice was clipped, businesslike. My wife thinks I should hear you out. My heart leaped into my throat. Thank you. I don't thank me yet. I'm doing this for her and for my own peace of mind, not for you. I understand. There's a coffee shop called Groundwork on Hawthorne. I can meet you there tomorrow at noon. I have a 1-hour lunch break. I'll be there, I promised. And Frank? If you don't show up, don't contact me again. Ever. He hung up before I could respond. That night, a sharp pain gripped my abdomen, doubling me over in my motel bathroom. It passed after a few minutes, but left me sweating and shaky. Dr. Kapoor had warned me the pain would come in waves, getting more frequent and intense as the disease progressed. I swallowed 2 of the prescription painkillers and went to bed early, praying I'd be steady enough for tomorrow's meeting. Groundwork Coffee was busy with the lunch crowd when I arrived 20 minutes early. I secured a quiet table in the corner and ordered 2 coffees, then spent the time alternating between watching the door and checking that the small photo album I'd brought was still in my jacket pocket. At 12:03, Matthew walked in. He spotted me immediately, but stopped at the counter to order his own drink before approaching, ignoring the coffee I'd purchased for him. A small rebellion, but I understood the need to maintain control. You look like hell, he said by way of greeting, sliding into the seat across from me. I attempted a smile. It's good to see you too. He didn't return the smile. Let's not do the small talk thing. You wanted to meet. I'm here. So talk. I nodded, taking a deep breath. First, I want to say I'm sorry. Not just for leaving, but for staying away. For missing your graduations, your wedding, the birth of your son. James, he supplied. His name is James. James, I repeated, the name of my grandson feeling sacred on my tongue. How old is he? 8. Matthew's expression softened slightly when mentioning his son. Look, I didn't come here for apologies. I've had 20 years to accept that you weren't interested in being my father. What I want to know is why now? What's changed? The perfect opening to tell him about my diagnosis, but I hesitated. I've been sober for 15 years, I said instead. During that time, I tried to make amends to everyone I've hurt. You were always at the top of that list, but I convinced myself you were better off without me barging back into your life. That wasn't your decision to make, Matthew said, anger flashing in his eyes, my eyes. I was a kid. I needed my father. I know, I whispered. I was wrong. So wrong. And I've spent 15 years regretting it. So what changed? He pressed. Why track me down now? I shifted uncomfortably. I realized time isn't infinite. None of us know how much we have left. He studied me carefully, his eyes narrowing. Are you sick? I hesitated too long. You are, aren't you? Matthew leaned forward. Is that what this is about? Some deathbed reconciliation to clear your conscience? No, I said quickly. I mean, yes, I'm sick, but that's not the only reason I'm here. What is it? Heart problems? Liver damage from all those years of drinking. Cancer, I admitted finally. Pancreatic, it's advanced. Matthew sat back in his chair, his expression unreadable. How long? 6 months. Maybe less. He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. When he looked up, his face was carefully neutral. I'm sorry to hear that, but it doesn't change anything between us. The word stung, but I nodded. I understand. I didn't come here expecting forgiveness. I needed to see you, to tell you that walking out was the biggest mistake of my life, and I've regretted it every day since. You have a funny way of showing regret, he said bitterly. 20 years of silence says a lot more than whatever speech you've prepared. You're right. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the small photo album. I brought something for you. You don't have to look at it now, or ever, but I want you to have it. Matthew made no move to take it, so I placed it on the table between us. What is it? He asked, eyeing it suspiciously. Proof that I never forgot you. I opened the album to the first page, a school photo of Matthew at 13, shortly after I'd left. Your mother used to send these to my sister, who would forward them to me. I kept every one. I turned the pages slowly. Matthew at his high school graduation. A newspaper clipping of him making dean's list in college. A grainy photo of him in a cap and gown receiving his diploma. How'd you get these? He asked, his voice tight. I hired a private investigator a few times over the years, just to make sure you were okay. I never interfered because I thought you were better off without me. That wasn't your call to make, he repeated, but his voice had lost some of its edge. I know that now. I turned to the last page. A wedding announcement I'd cut from the Portland newspaper 5 years ago. I was there, at your wedding. His head snapped up. What? I sat in the back of the church, left before the reception. You looked so happy, and I didn't want to ruin your day. Matthew stared at me, conflicting emotions playing across his face. You should have said something. Maybe. Probably. I was still convincing myself that staying away was the right thing. He was quiet for a long moment, then checked his watch. I need to get back to work. My heart sank. Of course. We both stood awkwardly. I wanted to hug him, but knew better than to try. Thanks for meeting me, I said lamely. Matthew nodded, then surprised me by picking up the photo album. I'll take this. My wife will want to see it. He paused. How long are you staying in Portland? As long as necessary, I said. I'm not going anywhere this time. Unless the cancer has other plans, I thought, but didn't say. He seemed to be weighing something in his mind. James has a baseball game this weekend. Saturday morning at Laurel Hills Park. If you wanted to come. I felt like I might float away with sudden hope. I like that very much. Don't make a big deal of it, he warned. And don't tell him who you are yet. That's for me and Karen to decide. Of course. Whatever you think is best. Matthew nodded once more, then turned to leave. At the door, he hesitated. The motel you're staying at, it's not great. There are better places. It's fine for now. Just take care of yourself, okay? He wouldn't meet my eyes as he said it. It wasn't forgiveness, not by a long shot. But it was something. I promised. That night, I had another pain attack, worse than before. I ended up in the emergency room at Providence Portland Medical Center. After explaining my diagnosis to the attending physician, I was given stronger pain medication and a referral to the hospital's oncology department. You should consider hospice care options, the doctor advised gently, especially if you're far from home. I laughed grimly. I'm home. My son lives here. That's good, he said. Family support is important at this stage. I didn't correct his assumption. Technically, Matthew was family, but whether he'd provide any support remained to be seen. The hospital kept me overnight for observation, and I was discharged the following afternoon with new prescriptions and pamphlets about end-of-life care that I stuffed into my jacket without reading. On my way out, I impulsively stopped at the gift shop and bought a small stuffed bear wearing a baseball uniform. For James, I told myself, a peace offering. Back at the motel, I found a message waiting from Matthew. Heard you were in the hospital. How did they know to call me? I texted back. I put you as my emergency contact. Sorry, should have asked first. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, game is at 10 a.m. Field 3. James plays second base. I smiled weakly. I'll be there. Saturday morning dawned clear and cool. I took extra pain medication, knowing it would make me fuzzy, but hoping it would get me through the game without incident. I dressed carefully in clean jeans and a button-down shirt, then drove to the park, arriving 30 minutes early. The bleachers by Field 3 were already filling with parents. I spotted Matthew and a pretty brunette woman, Karen, his wife, setting up chairs along the third base line. I approached slowly, clutching the gift bag with the stuffed bear. "Frank," Matthew acknowledged, spotting me. "This is Karen." "It's nice to meet you," she said, extending her hand with a warmth her husband lacked. "Matt's told me about your situation." "All of it, I hope," I said, glancing at Matthew. "Enough," she confirmed. "I'm sorry about your diagnosis." "Thank you." I handed her the gift bag, awkwardly. "I brought something small for James, if that's okay." She peeked inside and smiled. "That's very thoughtful. He loves baseball." "Gets that from his father," I said. Matt, was the same at his age. An uncomfortable silence followed. Matthew busied himself adjusting their chairs while Karen watched me with curious eyes. "Have you seen a local oncologist yet?" she asked. "I'm an RN at Providence." "Ah, so that's how Matthew knew I was there." I nodded. "I have an appointment on Tuesday." "Good. They have an excellent palliative care team." Another awkward silence. I was saved by the arrival of the teams, little boys in oversized uniforms spilling onto the field with boundless energy. James spotted his parents and waved enthusiastically, then looked at me with open curiosity. "Who's that old guy?" I heard him ask as he ran up. Matthew hesitated, then said, "This is Mr. Reynolds. He's an old friend who's visiting." James eyed me suspiciously. "You look like my dad." Out of the mouths of babes. I smiled. "I've been told that before." Karen handed him the gift bag. "Mr. Reynolds brought you something." James pulled out the bear and grinned. "Cool. Thanks." Then he was off again, showing his teammates his new treasure before being called to warm up. "He seems like a great kid," I said, my throat tight. "He is," Matthew replied, and I detected the first hint of genuine warmth in his voice when talking to me. "You can sit with us if you want." I nodded gratefully and settled into a chair Karen unfolded for me, careful not to show how much the simple act of sitting pained me. The game was everything Little League Baseball should be: chaotic, enthusiastic, and only occasionally resembling actual baseball. James was indeed a natural, fielding grounders with surprising skill for an 8-year-old. Every time he made a play, Matthew cheered loudly, and I found myself joining in, pride swelling in my chest for this boy I'd just met. In the fourth inning, a sharp pain lanced through my abdomen. I tried to hide my grimace, but Karen noticed. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "Fine," I managed. "Just need a minute." I excused myself and made my way slowly to the restroom, where I dry heaved into a toilet, the pain coming in waves. When it finally subsided, I splashed water on my face and stared at my reflection. The man looking back was gaunt, with yellowing skin and sunken eyes. How much time did I really have left? The doctors had said 6 months, but that was nearly a month ago, and the disease seemed to be accelerating. By the time I returned, the game was ending. James's team had won, and he was jumping up and down with his teammates. "Everything okay?" Matthew asked as I carefully lowered myself back into my chair. "Just needed some air," I lied. He didn't look convinced, but didn't push it. "They're going for pizza to celebrate. Do you want to join us?" The invitation surprised me. "Are you sure?" Matthew exchanged a look with Karen, who nodded slightly. "Yeah, I'm sure. I like that very much." Pizza with an 8-year-old and his parents after a baseball victory is a loud, messy affair. James, still in his dirt-stained uniform, peppered me with questions between bites. "So how do you know my dad?" Matthew tensed beside me, but I prepared for this. "We go way back, before he was even your age. Were you friends at school?" I smiled. "Something like that." "Do you live in Portland too?" "No, I'm just visiting." "Where do you live?" "James," Karen interrupted gently. "That's enough questions. Eat your pizza before it gets cold." James complied, but his curious eyes kept darting between me and his father, clearly sensing something more than a casual friendship. After lunch, we walked back to the parking lot together. The pain was returning, making each step an effort, but I was determined not to show it. "Thanks for including me today," I said as we reached our cars. "James liked you," Karen said. "He doesn't warm up to strangers easily. Must sense a family connection," I joked weakly. Matthew didn't laugh. "We should tell him," he said abruptly, "who you really are." I stared at him, stunned. "Are you sure?" "No," he admitted. "But he's going to figure it out himself if you keep coming around. He's smart. Like his father," I said softly. Matthew actually smiled at that, just barely. "We're having a barbecue next weekend. Sunday afternoon. If you're feeling up to it, you could come. We'll talk to him before then." I blinked back sudden tears. "I like that very much. Don't make me regret this," he warned. "I won't," I promised. "Not again." I never made it to the barbecue. The following Thursday, the pain became unbearable. I managed to call 911 before collapsing in my motel room. I woke up in the hospital with tubes in my arms and Matthew dozing in a chair beside my bed. "Matt," I croaked. He jerked awake. "Hey, you're back. What happened?" "Your pancreas is basically shutting down," he said bluntly. "The cancer's spreading faster than they expected. They had to remove fluid from your abdomen." I closed my eyes, digesting this. "How long?" Matthew hesitated. "The doctor can explain better. Please, just tell me." He leaned forward, running a hand through his hair, just like I used to do when stressed. "Weeks, not months." "I'm sorry." I nodded slowly. My suspicions confirmed. "I'm sorry too. About the barbecue." "Don't worry about that." He reached for a cup of water and held the straw to my lips. "James knows now about you being his grandfather." I drank gratefully, then asked, "How did he take it?" "He has questions. Lots of them. But he wants to meet you. Officially meet you." Matthew's voice wavered slightly. "Karen's bringing him by later, if you're up for it." "I'd like that." I tried to shift position and winced. Matthew stood quickly. "I'll get the nurse. You're due for more pain meds." As he reached the door, I called out, "Matt." He turned. "Thank you for being here." He nodded once, his expression complex. "Get some rest, Dad." "Dad, not Frank." The word hung in the air between us, fragile and precious. James was surprisingly mature about meeting his dying grandfather. Karen had clearly prepared him well. He approached my hospital bed with cautious interest rather than fear, despite my deteriorating appearance. "Hi, Grandpa," he said, testing out the title. James." My voice was weak, but I managed to smile. "I'm sorry we didn't get to know each other sooner." He shrugged. "Dad says you were sick. Not just now, but a different kind of sick before." Matthew had explained my alcoholism in terms an 8-year-old could understand. I was grateful for his honesty. "That's right. But I'm better from that sickness now." James nodded solemnly. "But now you have cancer and you're going to die. Kids and their bluntness." "Yes, that's true. That's sad." He fidgeted with the baseball bear I'd given him, which he'd brought along. "Did you like baseball when my dad was little?" "I loved it." "Your dad was a great player." "Better than me?" I smiled. "Different. He was a pitcher. You're faster." James beamed at this, then frowned thoughtfully. "If you get better, can you come see more of my games?" The innocent question broke my heart. I glanced at Matthew, who was watching us with damp eyes. "I don't think I'm going to get better from this," I said gently. "But I'll be watching your games, just from somewhere else. Like heaven, something like that." James considered this, then placed his bear next to me on the bed. "Slugger can keep you company until you feel better or go to heaven." I touched the bear's soft head. "That's very kind of you, but he belongs with you." "He can visit," James insisted. "Dad says visiting is important." From the corner of my eye, I saw Matthew turn away, wiping his face. "Visit any time," I told James. "Both of you." They did visit every day for the 2 weeks I remained in the hospital. As my condition deteriorated, I was moved to the hospice wing. Karen pulled strings to get me a room with a view of MT Hood on clear days. Matthew brought old photo albums from his childhood, ones Claire had kept. We looked through them together, filling in 20 years of blanks. He told me about college, meeting Karen, their wedding. I learned that James had a 4-year-old sister, Emma, who was staying with Karen's parents during this difficult time. I wish I could meet her, I said. Next time, Matthew promised, though we both knew there wouldn't be a next time. One evening, about a week in a hospice care, Matthew came alone. He seemed nervous, fidgeting with his wedding ring as he sat beside my bed. I've been talking to a therapist, he said abruptly. About you. About us. That's good, I said sincerely. She thinks I need to forgive you. For my sake, not yours. He stared out the window. I'm not sure I can. You don't have to, I assured him. What I did. Let me finish. He turned to face me. I'm angry. I've been angry for 20 years. When Mom told me you weren't coming back, I thought it was because of something I did. No, you whispered. Never. I know that now. But it took years of therapy to believe it. He swallowed hard. And now you're back, and you're dying, and I don't know how to feel. Part of me wants to hate you forever. Part of me. It's okay, I said when he trailed off. Whatever you feel is valid. The thing is, he continued, watching you with James, seeing how much you care about him despite just meeting him. It makes me wonder what kind of father you might have been if you'd gotten sober sooner. I wanted that too. Every day. Matthew nodded slowly. I don't know if I can fully forgive you yet, but I'm working on it. And I want you to know that I'm glad you came back. Even now. It was more than I deserved, and far more than I'd expected when I'd first parked outside his house a month ago. Thank you, I said simply. That means everything to me. 3 days later, I took a sharp turn for the worse. The doctors increased my morphine, and I drifted in and out of consciousness. During my lucid moments, I found Matthew almost always at my bedside, sometimes with Karen or James, sometimes alone. During one such moment, I managed to whisper, I need to tell you something. Matthew leaned closer. What is it? I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. The words we desperately slurred, but I needed to say them. I was so proud of the man you became, even from a distance. I know, he said, taking my hand. I know that now. I'm sorry I wasted so much time. We're here now, he said firmly. That's what matters. I drifted off again, comforted by his presence and the warmth of his hand in mine. The next time I woke, the room was dark except for a small lamp. Matthew was asleep in the recliner beside my bed, an open book fallen to his chest. On the windowsill stood a row of crayon drawings from James. Baseball games, rainbows, and one of 3 stick figures labeled Dad, James, and Grandpa. I studied my son's face in repose, marveling at the man he'd become despite my absence. Or perhaps because of it. Strong, compassionate, a better father than I had ever been. I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. I'm proud of you, I whispered, though he couldn't hear me. So proud. Matthew stirred slightly, but didn't wake. I watched him breathe, committing his face to memory, knowing these moments were precious and numbered. Outside the window, dawn was breaking over Portland, painting MT Hood in golden light. I thought about James and the games I would never see, about little Emma whom I would never meet. I thought about the grandparent I could have been if I'd made different choices. But regret, I realized, was a luxury I could no longer afford. These past weeks had given me more than I deserved. A chance to see my son as a man, to meet my grandson, to begin healing wounds I'd thought were permanent. It wasn't enough time. It could never be enough time. But it was something. A gift I hadn't earned, but had been given anyway. As the sun climbed higher, I felt myself drifting again, this time toward a deeper darkness. But for the first time in decades, I wasn't afraid. My son was here. I had found my way home at last. And that was enough. Editor's note: I am Matthew, Frank's son. I completed and published this story as my father requested in his final days. Writing down his journey back into my life was his last wish, and I promised to share it with others. He believes someone out there might be inspired to reconnect before it's too late. Dad, I kept my promise. Rest in peace. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.